although I am looking forward to what we're about to do, I'm really looking forward to where it's going to head you, and that is to be able to hear from the Lord. But what we're going to do is we're going to sort of wade out into trying to state some beliefs. So on your table, each one of you were given a piece of paper that has a paragraph at the top, and it starts off with, there are common ways a child can react, and there are issues on there. Here's what I'd like you to do. This is an assignment that you're going to do with up to 2 other people at your table. A lot of our tables have 6 people. So it doesn't matter who you choose. I just want 2 to 3 in a group in just a minute, and I'll tell you what we're going to do. Now, by the way, so far, how many of you heard, all right, 2 to 3 per group? Raise your hand if you heard that, okay? And so this is sort of a warm-up. I want you to imagine, because you are one of the leaders, you're the pastor at your church, you're the leader at your church, or one of the leaders there, I want you to imagine a young person coming to you. Maybe that young person is 13 years old. And they come from, let me parenthetically say that our pain, our negative issues, does not necessarily come from our parents. But we live in a fallen world. So sometimes it's from friends that ripped us off, or etc., from other events that happened. But on this particular example, this child, and we're going to treat them as 12 different children, had 12 different issues. And of their 12 different issues, of the first 11, their parents caused them. We're just making it easy, all right? How many of you understand me so far? In other words, all of us know in this room, I'm not blaming everybody's parents for their issues. We live in a fallen world. Do you understand? I don't want Shareka to think that I'm telling his son that he's all of his problems. I'm teasing a little bit. But what I'd like you to imagine is, if you had a child that came to counsel with you, and that 13-year-old child came from a highly, notice on the first one, I'm just referring to the first word, a highly irresponsible family, an irresponsible mom, an irresponsible dad, what would you expect to see in that child? So we're going to do the first one together. And how about I give you the setting? Highly irresponsible would be dad's in prison and mom is a drug addict. And this 13-year-old maybe even has a couple siblings that are younger than them. If you were talking to that young person and listening for ways that child has to make life work, or what they think of themselves, or what they think of authority figures, what would you imagine? Or how does that child make life work? Remember, those are questions that we talked about before. Remember? So when we talk about the term, what do I believe? Believe is an old Latin word which means, what do I live by? Let me say this. If you don't have a live by, you don't have a belief. Did you catch that? So if you tell me you love Jesus, or I believe in Jesus, but you have no live by that reflects the Lord in any way, I would say it's not a belief, it's a fantasy. It's a philosophy. It is not a belief. Do you agree? So something happens when we get translated from the kingdom of darkness into the kingdom of God. Something happens in our being and we begin to have a live by. That doesn't mean all of me lives by the Lord constantly, but there is a live by in this boy. You understand? How many of you are with me so far? I haven't lost you yet. Okay? No one raised their hands. I think you did. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So remember, in the live by, when we're looking for negative issues. We're not looking for positive, because there are some strong positive things that people can receive from being through negative situations. Do you agree? I mean, I think we are living proof in this room and could speak of the goodness of the Lord and strong convictions we have because of what we have been through. But we're looking for negative things of how you keep yourself safe, how you protect yourself and others. It's a similar issue, but how you keep it from repeating itself, that very issue. We're looking at how you would make life work. So how does a child who's 13 years old with mom, a drug addict, dad in a prison, how do they make life work? What do they think of their own value? What do they think of their own worth? Themselves. What do they think of the category? Jill, I did the same thing, if it makes you feel any better. Does it? Yeah. Yeah. How many of you love Jill? Huh? Yay. That wasn't everybody, but it was rousing for those that did, all right? Come on, you guys. But I think it was the rice that did it to all of us, all right? But can you see that categorically, can you see where a young person might find that they have no trust in authority if they're brought up in that kind of irresponsible situation? Can you see how maybe they would grow up only trusting themselves? How many of you can see that? You better listen, or you're not going to be able to give some deep answers for yourself, all right? So what do they think of themselves? What do they think of others on how they're going to be able to make life work? So here's what I want you to do around the table. I want you only have 12 minutes to do this. So we're going to do the first one together, and that is, and you're trying to think, okay, how would a child react to this? What do I think would be some of the behaviors I might expect to see in that child if a child grows up in a highly irresponsible home? Name one. We got 3 answers, and I like them all. A child might grow up then with no boundaries. They do whatever they want, whenever they want, whatever makes them feel good. And then there was a second one. Did you say irresponsible? Okay, so he or she might say, I'm going to go join the gang down the street. Enough of this. I'm going to live an irresponsible life just like mom and dad have. What's another one?
Totally controlling.
Hang on, I'm going to go back here first.
I think she was saying the same thing, overly responsible.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They're going to become pastors. Huh? They're going to make sure their siblings are taken care of. And those will be the pastors that, by the way, that will make sure, and they understand what people go through, and they're going to work constantly to make sure people are being taken care of. In fact, do you want to hear a little nugget on mentoring of counseling? How many of you want to hear it?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry if it takes longer, Pastor. I see a lot of trauma victims from the war, from Afghanistan, Iraq, Afghanistan, and places that we've, so to speak, never been in the United States, even though we went there and we sent special ops there, and then they come back traumatized, can't even live with their own selves or their own family. These guys suffer from terrible night episodes, night terrors, etc. Their life is over. They're being given drugs. They go to the VA there in the United States. They give them counseling treatment, and for many of them it doesn't help. I can only see one person at a time, and it takes 2 days. I see them healed completely each time. Here's what I find. 3 elements, in case you want to hear it, in case you want to help people in that way too. One is they have to be able to tell their story in safety. And they want to know you're going to be safe to tell because you're not going to become terrorized by their own fears, but they want to make sure that you're not going to change their opinion of them as well. In other words, judgment of them, and they want to know that they're not going to be talked about. So they come in and they have to be able to share thoroughly what happened. And when they're telling me of their buddy that it was killed right next to him and how they were splattered with blood or whatever the story they might be telling me, I actually asked them what was his name. Oh, Kevin, what was Kevin's last name? What was his assignment? So we talk about the real person, so they're able to tell their story. Tell me your relationship with Kevin, etc. So they're telling their story, okay? The second element that always needs to happen is they do something like what we're doing with the Post-it notes. And here's what happens in every case. The present trauma that they experienced at war, the reason it became traumatized is because of their belief systems of the past. So maybe they were raised, Sarah, in a highly irresponsible home, but they became responsible for what was near impossible to accomplish. Now they're a sergeant or a corporal, etc. in the army. Their buddy gets killed. They are over responsible. They feel responsible for it, and they bear it. Do you understand? See? So they need to tell their story, then the tie, and then they need to hear from the Lord. Do you want to hear one story?
Yeah.
Just one element. I only got a yes out of 3. How many? Okay. So a man sees me, handsome as all get out. I mean, reason I'm telling you, 30 years old, strikingly handsome. Married to this beautiful gal that came in, and this man had had night episodes, night terrors every night, and he'd already been treated and was just not better. I'm going to be straightforward with you as if you're all leaders, okay? But he came home from Afghanistan, but even though he's young and healthy, he had had 8 buddies killed through 3 tours to Afghanistan. 8 buddies. Came home and he couldn't even have sex with his wife because of his own inability. Do you understand? He couldn't go to a birthday party and have fun. In church, if the worship started getting too good, he would walk out. Not because he didn't like the Lord, but all these emotions were striking something in him. And I couldn't just say, you learn, hey, if you love God, you go in there and sit down. It doesn't work. He needs healing. He needs his dad to heal him. We talk about every one of the friends that were killed, and he knew all of them personally through those 3 different tours. He deals with his belief system. He happened to be the oldest in his family and was responsible for his siblings in a very irresponsible home. Let's go to the third area. What's Jesus have to say? I never know in advance, and you're being set up. How do you like that, huh? He tells me about his buddies. I don't know what God's going to say. But I know this. His soul is still over in Afghanistan guarding his buddies. You understand? Guarding their dead bodies. I pray for him, ask the Lord to speak to him. I leave the room. The Lord speaks to him about all his issues, but he gets to number 37, which is the one about his buddies being killed. He has a vision. Even though it happened in 3 different tours, and even though each one of them left on a cargo plane in a casket at 8 different times, in the vision, he saw himself standing at the back of the ramp of a cargo plane with 8 caskets. And what's he doing? He's guarding them. He's got his rifle in his hand. He's standing watch. That's where he was in his soul. That's why he couldn't come home and enjoy his wife, enjoy his kids, etc. What's the Lord say to him? I couldn't have made this stuff up. I don't know what I would have prophesied if I'd been prophesying to him, but God knows how to speak to his kids. Do you know that? He has a voice. If we stopped right now, you could hear the Lord. But I'm not going to stop yet. I'm just setting you up for more. He has a vision. He's standing watch over those 8 caskets. Jesus walks up to him and said, your watch is over. They're mine from now on. He was able in his heart to release them and come back home, enjoy his wife, enjoy his kids, enjoy church again. Why? He came from an over-responsible situation. Sometimes, in our efforts to be the best, we actually set ourselves up for more hurt. Isn't that interesting? Enough said. Okay, we're just talking about number one, aren't we? With my ADD 3 stories attached to it. Okay. Okay. Anyone else? So we have irresponsible, yes, over-responsible, and no boundaries, yeah.
I want to ask a question before we go to some of these experiences. Sometimes they have different
Outcomes?
on
Clearly, clearly.
I know of people that their experience make them to behave in different way from what is normally expected. Let me start an example. I know somebody that was not well brought up in terms of care, and he made up his mind, it won't happen to my children.
Right.
He was over caring for the children.
Yes.
And I know another person that will say, my dad did not do this for me, so don't expect, even where he can afford it, he will always tell the children, don't expect me to go further. This is where my dad stopped.
Yeah.
He didn't go beyond primary school, even when he can afford to send them to university. You know? So the question is, they have different
That's why there's
planning or not.
that's why there's 3 different answers there. Because if we had the same issue amongst all of us, and we are being finite in our answers, we'd have this many different answers. So you're right on. Okay? All right. Yes. I didn't hear you. Insecurity. The child would grow up feeling very insecure. Like, how about even thinking adults are not there for me? Maybe no one's there for me. Okay? Now, we just put some possibilities, didn't we? Now, we took 10 minutes because Robbie added 2 stories in there, but you only have 12 minutes to finish it. So break into groups of 3. All of you come up with at least 1 answer each on each one of those, and I'll stop you in 12 minutes. Go for it now. Break into groups of 2 to 3. But just in an understanding of people, talk to me if a child, and we're going to need to turn back to that if somebody would remind me. But if a child grew up in a highly irresponsible home, what did you put as your answers?
Overly responsible.
Overly? Irresponsible, I remember one. And no boundaries. Huh? Okay. You can't read my writing, but that's what I put. Let's go to the next one. Parents gone all the time. Ooh, yeah. What else? What was that back here? Unloved. Oh. We're only going to take 3 each. How about parents fight all the time with no resolve? Who? One at a time. Abusive. What's your name again? Cinde. C-U-N-D. Tunde. Tunde. I listened to loud music too much when I was a kid. All right? Okay. Tell me what you said again. Abusive. Who's got another one? It was a choir. Violent. So parents that fight all the time and that child can end up being violent. Say it again. Fearful. Can I use the word fearful?
People pleaser.
Attention seeking.
Attention seeking. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, people pleaser, yeah.
But they don't believe that confrontation helps. By the way, if you're a pastor and you don't believe confrontation helps, you'll let problems continue that need to be confronted. Do you know that? Okay? And you'll wonder, why do these people keep protecting themselves by doing ornery things, like leaving my church? Huh? Well, by the way, we aren't to be involved in everybody's problems. You understand that? And some people need to work things out. But there is a book by a guy, some doctor from Fuller, called Caring Enough to Confront, and he calls confrontation carefrontation. In other words, it's got to be done in care for the individual, but it's got to be done. And you do it out of health, not withholding out of fear. If you're going to withhold, you withhold out of health because it's right to withhold, not because you're fearful. Isn't that right? So non-confrontive, okay? Let's go to the next one. Parents demanding, unable to be pleased. Sid? Low self-esteem, yeah. I'm going to put low worth, just less words. Inferiority, yeah, I'm just inferior, yeah. Yeah. Too demanding. How about even giving up? Huh? They give up on trying to please. Say it again. So self-harm, did you see that? Did you see that? Okay, let's go. I'm only going to put a couple down for the next ones. No time with, number 5. Lonely. Isolation. Attention seeking. How about go make trouble so I can get attention? By the way, I don't mean to talk about my dog so much. But when 3 of our grandkids come over and they're all vying for my attention, one is 2, one is 6, one is 8. They all love Grandpa and want to play with me. The dog can't stand it. She is not a barker, but she becomes a barker. And she doesn't put her toy up by my lap. She throws it at me and then barks at me, looking at me, staring me down to get attention. She's become obnoxious, okay? Well, some people go make trouble. Come on, how many of you made trouble to get attention? Any of you in here? Anyone? Yeah, okay. Go make trouble. You know what? If we could only realize and teach that person there's a better way, but if you could see through that troublemaker and see in their heart to see them set free and know they need the love of God more than anyone. How about our parents don't listen? Okay, one right over here first. I thought I heard a lady say. Thank you, okay. What was that? And wow, so they become a seeker of those that will give them attention. By the way, the gang down the street will like me. Come on. In fact, let's go with number 6 for just a minute. Have you ever been around somebody, you know, this one, parents don't listen, and you see that they don't believe people listen, so they back off and they never talk? Have you ever seen anyone doesn't believe they're listened to, so they talk all the time? Huh? What are some professions? Work with me. What are some professions that a person could go into if they want to insist people listen to them? Let's pick that third. A comedian, a public speaker, military, a teacher, talks all the time. How about a policeman? You better listen to him. The judge. Yeah. Okay, now we're going to go with Mike. What did you say? Pastors. Listen to this. Now, this isn't true for any of you, but I have probably interviewed 2,500 pastors through the years and probably appointed well over 500. That means 4 and 5 didn't get the go. I remember asking one, why do you want to pastor? I love to speak. By the way, good for you. And I don't turn them off for that. I love to speak. And I thought, okay, let's find out what his real love is. He's just telling me he loves to speak. It's hard to give me the wrong answer. I'll come around and ask it 3 different ways to try and get the right answer. You understand? I'm not trying to fool people. So I said, well, what do you like to teach on? Doesn't matter. Well, I mean, tell me if you had 3 messages that come out in everything you say and do, what would they be? I just love to speak to people. Okay. Now I'll tell you how I'm taking that while you're talking to me, and that is, if I were to take it at its broadest, you don't care if you're teaching on auto mechanics. I don't, he said. You know what I realized by the time I was done with him? He wanted to pastor so he could get an audience to listen to him. Okay? And what will happen is some people will respond positively because they're still hearing the word. But others of us will sit there and think, something's contrary while they're talking. Their words are right, and I know they're not like living in some wanton sin or something, but something's wrong and I don't know what it is. So they leave. But what it is the conflictive motives within the individual. Do you understand? Okay. Let's just do one more. Number 7, blamed, ridiculed, demeaned. Okay? Shame, and end result could be, wow, suicide? Huh? Bullies. Yeah. Boy, you could be one too. Look how big you are. You're like a linebacker, man, all right? A bully. Most people as big as Io are gentle as lambs, though. Isn't that right? Huh? Yeah. All right. Did I redeem myself off that a little bit? Okay. So one, if they're blamed all the time, might become a blamer. How about passing the buck? Huh? Okay. Now, these are all effects from a belief. They're not the belief itself. But I want to talk to you about this for just a minute. Let's pick one. How about overly responsible? I'm just picking. Unloved, non-confrontive, feel inferior, go make trouble, disrespectful, passing the buck. What if all that were in one person and you marry them? Or they married you? Who said Jesus? Today, did you say that because of you? Yeah, okay. So, let's call this Robbie because it's unsafe to make it about any of you right now, all right? And I'm not going to feel frustrated from it. I'm overly responsible, so Benita wants to talk to me, and all she wants to do is try and work something out, and she's saying she saw an area that maybe I wasn't responsible in, that I could grow up a little bit in. Is that fair usually? Is that fair in marriage to talk about that stuff? I say it is, okay? But I freak out because she's basically, you're telling me I'm irresponsible, aren't you? I wasn't telling you that, Robbie. Yes, you were. You don't love me. Robbie, I gave my life to you. I work every day with you and for you and do it. You don't love me. And then I'm busy saying, and I don't want to talk about it. It gets us nowhere. Robbie, we need to talk about it. Go talk about it with Jesus. Go ask him to do something about it, all right? And I'm going to go out and make some trouble. I'm already making trouble. But by the way, it's your mother's fault. In fact, you shouldn't have brought it up in the first place. All right? But can you see that? Can you see how this stuff affects our life? Okay. Now, get the sheet. You have a sheet in front of you. Some of you folded it in different ways. I folded mine in a way like this. You make whatever you did work, all right? But I'm going to open mine up. And to remember, you picked your top 7. How many of you remember? You put a star or a circle by your top 7. How many of you did that? Raise your hand. Okay, all of the front tables. Neither of the, no, I'm teasing. Okay. So I'm going to answer question number 1 at the top of my paper. You can do it at the bottom of yours or the side of yours. It doesn't matter to me. But put Q1 so you know what it's about. So put over here Q. Look at me. Put Q1 right at the corner where you're going to answer it. Q1. It means question 1. All right? Question 1. And question 1 is, what do I believe? What do I believe? And in that, you're basically, instead of now answering 12 arbitrary issues about somebody else, you're going to be answering your reactions, your beliefs, how you kept yourself safe, how you kept yourself from repeating it, how you made life work, etc. That's what you're answering on these 12 issues for these other people. Now I want you to answer them on yourself. You're looking for the negative. You're not looking for, because my parents were so irresponsible, Jesus came into my life. Good. And that's what we're working towards. But I'm wanting you to put, that's a positive. I'm wanting you to put the negative down. Because my parents were so irresponsible, I'm just making this up. I became an overly responsible person, and I blame myself for everything that ever happens wrong in the church or in my family, and we can never work out to find solution. That would be a belief. Okay? How many of you know what I'm talking about? Lift your hand. Okay, this table does. This table, do you know what I'm talking about? You're going to answer question 1. Question 1, you understand it? Okay? You understand question 1? You understand question 1? Okay? You understand it? Okay. Question, I'll say it again. Okay. Did you hear me? I'll say it again. Thank you. I was entertaining myself. Maybe you didn't get it. Okay. Thank you. I take that as a great compliment. What, as a result of that negative issue, and you need to cover all 7 one at a time and identify it. So your first one might be number 3 on your paper. You then put number 3 on the empty part, and you basically answer, what do I believe? What am I living by? Remember how I told you how I protected myself from the dads of this world? Or I told you how Barney, what he thought about people he loved. Huh? In other words, how are these people making life work? What are they thinking of themselves? What are they thinking of other people? How are they keeping it from repeating itself? It's all in the words, what do I believe? What am I living by? Does that help? Okay.